Hi, Diane.
Hi, darling.
So, hi, everyone. I'm Keith Fox, CEO of Phaidon, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our next Phaidon Previews, which is our monthly series featuring our authors in conversation with their editors. We started this during the pandemic, and one of the most extraordinary things about Phaidon and Monticellian art space is we get to work with the world's most influential artists, chefs, writers, and thinkers to create beautiful and essential books. And this is our way of bringing them to you in first person. I'm particularly thrilled today to introduce Diane Firstenberg. As a fashion designer and founder of a brand, Diane transformed her iconic wrap dress into a symbol of power and independence for millions of women. She's known internationally for her work in philanthropy and created the DVF Awards, which celebrate women for courage, strength, and leadership. In 2019, she was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. And in March 20, she launched In Charge, a platform for the empowerment of women. I fell in love with Diane when she came off our elevator and openly said to my team, how do I buy the Phaidon Highlight book to give to our friends? And I knew at that moment with Deb Aronson, our publisher, that we needed to do a book with her. Today, she's joined in conversation with Billy Norwich, a commissioning editor for fashion and interiors, for her preview of Own It, The Secret to Life, which is launching globally on March 8th, International Women's Day. So if you're joining us for the first time, here's how this works. Diane and Billy will be in conversation for about 20 minutes, and then Diane will respond to your question. If you have a question, use your chat function on your screen. So once again, thank you for being part of the Phaidon family. You're here today because you're a valued customer, retailer, partner, author, and you love us and we love you. I have to say that Own It is the right book at the right time with the right author. So enjoy it, and over to Billy Norwich.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Billy Norwich. Good morning, Diane. How are you? I've known Diane since,
I'm good.
I've known
Good
Diane
morning,
since
everybody.
1983, and over those years, many presents. And this is my favorite one I've ever gotten. It is such a gem, this book, this guide to life. Let's jump right in. What is Own It, Dan? What is, and you in this, when we were working together, you said that Own It, the secret to life, not the secret of life. Tell me.
Well, okay. So first of all, I do know Billy for a long, long time. We first met because he was doing an interview with me, and that's how we became friends. And he came to me and he said, you know, your aphorism, you always say these little sentences and people repeat them, and you have this aphorism, and it would be great to do a little book of aphorism. And I thought, oh, that sounds like a fun idea. You know, I love to give advice. I love to be the oracle. And at my age, it's completely allowed. So I thought, okay, I will do that. And so I got started. And first it was, oh, did we know already it was going to be called
No, I think
Own It?
we're gonna
Yes.
call it maybe In Charge.
Oh, yes. So because I had, you know, the In Charge came that when I was growing up, and people would, people say, what did you want to do? And I said, I don't know what I wanted to do, but I knew the kind of woman I wanted to be. I wanted to be a woman in charge. And then I thought more and more. And then when people said, who do you dress? I always said the woman in charge. It's the woman, you know, who is affirmative. So, but I want to say that to be in charge is not an aggressive statement. What it is really is owning who you are, is being your best friend. The most important relationship in life is the one you have with yourself. Once you have that, you know, every relationship is a plus and not a must. So you have that little shelter inside yourself when you are in charge. And the secret is really owning it. So you own your imperfection, they become your asset. You own your vulnerability, it becomes your strength. And so this book is called Own It, The Secret to Life,
You remember?
not of life. And well, I had said The Secret of Life, but it was always bothering me a little bit. And I kept on saying, don't you think it's arrogant? Don't you think it's arrogant? And then my very good friend, Sam Altman, who I sent him the book, he said to me, you know, it should be To Life. And that's how it became. Then as I was writing this little book, and as you could see, it's very little, you could put it in your pocket.
Yes.
It's really a guide. It's a guide for owning it. And owning it is the secret of life. So as I was writing it, when I was writing it as one big prose, I was very frustrated because I thought it sounded condescending and who is she and whatever. And then I had the idea to turn it as a dictionary. And I picked 250 words that I liked or sometimes that I don't like. And I wrote those little definitions, and then COVID happened and confinement. And all of a sudden, this book, which was supposed to be, you know, a book of advice, but was supposed to be fun and on the verge of frivolous, became much more serious because we were all in confinement. Everyone was reflecting, and then it became really exciting to me. And the most wonderful, so I picked words and I put the definition, this beautiful illustration in it. So it is actually like a little dictionary. But the great thing about it, I put so much of my soul into every single word. And the great thing about this is that all the words, you know, whatever you talk about, all the words go back to own it. And of course, I mean, you know, and own it is like someone who is sick, a child, fall down, own it. You know, you have no choice in life but owning it. And the minute you know that, it's not that it's disappeared, whatever challenge it is, but you own it. And then somehow it's in your hand. So it's a big secret. It's a wonderful book. I'm very proud of it. And the thing that made me so proud of it is that I realized that actually I am very coherent because everything about it, whether it's fashion or things that are serious, everything all leads to.
Well, it was wonderful during this. I mean, through this period, at the risk of too much information, I was dealing with some surgeries when we were talking back and forth. And I just want to, before I tell you the story about how I had to own something, Diane really was concerned about, you know, who am I to write this book? This is the only fashion designer. This is the only friend of mine I've ever known or interviewed who actually they write articles about she gives really good advice. So I would say, but there's an article in Women's Wear Daily saying the best things you've ever said in 40 years. So I think you are very entitled to this. During this time, I had some skin cancer, and so I have had 4 reconstructions since August. And I told Diane the first time, you know, we've been working on this book. And she said, I told her what was going on. I said, I really look terrible. And she paused and she said, own it. I got so angry. But every morning I'd wake up and go to the mirror, like the mirror is my reality. And I'd look wanting, you know, faster recovery. And I'd hear your voice, own it. And it wasn't, the thing is it wasn't resignation. It was almost a holistic reality check. And in an age where everyone's telling each other all these different stories, and the truth is, if we're lucky, just a good other opinion, I found this book profound, really profound. I mean, Deepak Chopra also thinks this book is profound because it's a trim tab. It really lights up a whole new way of thinking. And that, frankly, it kicked in all that shrinkage I've had, all that psychiatrist time. It kind of integrated it in this process for me. But you also went through and very well. Now I could digress by saying you really told us what own it is when you posted that picture of on your birthday on the boat that became an international in your bathing suit, and you gave the message, own it, own your age. but also you had to go through a lot of business stuff. Do you want to?
I
Yeah,
turned
beautiful
74
picture.
that day.
But what has it been like for you during the pandemic and owning it? How has it become more important? Do you want to talk about the business?
One thing I would like to say. With the age that I am, I wrote this book, and I did not really think that this book would resonate to very young people. And as I gave it around to few people, it was unbelievable, the response that I got from people I really didn't expect. And very much young girls. Young girls said, "This is great. I want this for all my friends." And and men
Yes.
too. I was surprised.
Well, it's true in the office.
Yeah.
I mean, the woman that you work most closely with, Lynn Ciccoglione, was really enamored by the book and very engaged in it, and she's really
Oh, I drove her
well.
crazy. I drove her crazy. She was my editor. I drove her crazy, but it was good.
Good.
I'm actually quite proud of this. So and the thing that is amazing is that the time that we're living now, this is so perfect because you use it all the time. My family at this point, I think they hate me because no matter what happens, I say, "Own it,"
I can see.
So, but we have no other choice but owning the situation. And it is not easy and it's difficult. And I am privileged because I have a house and a garden. But it's just very hard. And I have another trick, which is not in the book, but I will tell you, all of you, if you want. When things get tough, also, another thing that I tell people is think of it as a documentary.
I love that.
And what it means and what own it means is that detach yourself from it, but know that it's reality and you just have to deal with it. But there's a certain detachment, which I find very interesting. I think to be, sometimes when you are slightly detached, then you could deal with things better. Which I just finished the book.
I've read it also.
From Isabel
Did you listen
Wilkerson,
to it or read it?
and I
Did you listen to it or read it? It's a wonderful audiobook, isn't it?
I did.
She reads beautifully.
Yes, and what I love about it is that she's so detached, but at the same time, it's very.
Should we talk about some of the
it.
words then? I want people to know that I chose, I tried to choose something so that we could go through the book and people could see how it looks. So, I picked a few, because we're going to take audience questions in a few minutes. I hope, put your
Can the audience
I don't know
see
if I don't think the audience would actually be able to read. I can read out loud.
Okay, all right.
Well,
Okay,
I started with
did you
aware,
choose?
because that was your most important word.
Well, it's the first one, I think, right? It's the first one. And before I even wrote awareness, I wrote aware, alive, awake. All three words embody own it. And then awareness is full presence and consciousness. It is knowing who we are, where we are, and noticing everything around us. It is seeing, hearing, feeling. Awareness is assessing the gratitude of being alive. It is making an accurate, honest assessment of where we are in our journey. As a young girl, I wanted to show that I was strong, so I didn't smile much and acted tough. Later, I discovered that showing my vulnerability does not reveal weakness, that a joyous laugh and a smile can show strength too. As I became more aware, I felt more comfortable sharing who I was.
Let's do character.
And it's followed by alone. I think alone is very important at this point right now. Being alone is not being lonely. It is being whole. It is where we find our strength and our full potential. Being alone is the best way to reboot. So now the COVID time is really the best moment to reboot
and get to know our
reset the
character.
clock.
You talk a lot about in knowing you and in your lectures and conversations and also in the book, character. Let's do character, because I think that's a very important part of your, well, if you will.
You want character?
Steve.
Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay. Character is the one and only thing we have total control of. We can lose our health, our wealth, our beauty, our family, our freedom, but we never lose our character, even under torture. Our character is our strength, our spinal cord, the house inside ourselves. It's all we can truly count on.
Well,
Should we find a funny
my
one?
favorite funny one is the one, I think it's Fame. You know which one that is?
Fame, yes.
I was going to end this conversation by saying,
all right.
Well, it's nice talking to you, but do you know Cher?
By the way, we're reading long ones, but some are very short. Okay, Fame. The best thing about Fame is that it gives us a voice to amplify. It is being recognized, respected, and acclaimed. My favorite Fame story happened in Kathmandu, Nepal. I was being hosted by my Nepalese fellow fashion designer Prabal Gurung. We were in the middle of a holy week and the monks had been chanting for days. We went to the sacred Seto Gumba, also known as the White Monastery. And as very privileged guests, we sat by the shrine close to the spiritual leader, or Rinpoche, which translates as precious one. I felt humbled to be there and totally excited when I was invited to meet this holy man. After the first introduction, he turned to me and asked, "Do you know Cher?" I was taken by surprise, but proud to tell him, "Yes, I do know Cher." I will never forget this story, as it will forever be the most unexpected anecdote about power and the silliness of fame.
It's a very provocative.
Provocative.
Read provocative.
You like? Should I read provocative? I like it. Provocative is one of my favorite words. I love the sound of it. It tickles. It's a combination of question and affirmation. Nothing is more provocative than speaking the truth and revealing our imperfection. The provocative part gets the attention and the truth gets respect. When I first started my company in my early 20s, I did a lot of personal appearances all around the country. Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Detroit, Miami, San Francisco. It was all so new and so exciting to me. A young European Park Avenue princess coming to town to show her easy, affordable little dresses is how I was introduced by the local press everywhere. I did not love that definition. That's when I decided to become a bit more provocative in my narrative, to show that I was not perfect. The words became mine and the story was no longer affected.
I love that. Go ahead.
And then the other thing that I think it's important, I wrote for Y, you yourself. You and yourself are the two words that I kept wanting to use in this book. And yet, each time I did, it felt patronizing. So I used we or ourselves instead, and it felt right. Anything to learn from this? Maybe to remind ourselves that being part of others make us more understanding, inclusive, and helpful. Loving ourselves, yet being demanding on ourselves, is the best way to remind others to do the same.
Great. Have you received a copy of the book? Yes. Are you pleased with it? The look of it?
I am. It's very, very pretty. I mean, it's the letters are beautiful, the alphabet. Yes, I am actually pleased with it. It's very small, so you could barely see, but
Yeah.
it's supposed to be a
You were very
guide,
hands-on in the
guide
design of the
for
book.
a guide.
I just want, I'd like people to know that you were very involved. This book didn't just sort of, come out of a letter you wrote.
No, I wrote every
Absolutely.
single word. of this
Absolutely.
book. And I am effortless. Effortless is what owning it looks like, even though it is hard work. I mean, some are very small, very short, but
And vulnerability?
fun. Oh, vulnerability. Where's the visionary vulnerability? When we understand that our vulnerability is an asset, an inspiration to others, and a source of strength, everything changes. No longer a negative, vulnerability becomes a positive. There's one that I like, I think it's called Details. I think it's detail when you pay attention to the.
Yeah,
oh, maybe it's
I think
under attention. Maybe it's under attention.
Yeah.
Okay, you talk while I look. Okay, attention. Once we pay attention to details and to others, our lives become richer. It's like adding colors to a drawing, turning into a painting, or walking into a forest. Some people will see trees,
I love that.
others a universe.
I absolutely love that. I know that there are questions from people. I'm going to thank you, Diane. I think, why don't you take some of the questions? It's great seeing you.
Okay.
Hi, Diane. It's Emmy from London, from Phaidon in London. I've got a lot of questions from the audience here, so I'm going to just jump in. The first one, we have Eva from Spain. Would you describe this book as a self-help book?
Yes, it's definitely a help. It's definitely a guide, a self-help, but it's also a great gift. It's a gift for young girls. It's if someone it's a nice gift. It just feels uplifting, but in a serious way, in a deep way, and in a way that makes you strong. I mean, the whole point about all of this is then when you read it, you understand that you have the keys, that you are in charge, that being honest to yourself and not lying, and that is the key. So yes, I don't think that there's anyone. I mean, it's all true.
When we talked about whether it was self-help or not, you always said, the problem with the word self-help is the idea that there's something wrong with you. And this whole book is saying there's nothing wrong with you. It's be more you, and life improves. I just wanted to.
And you own your imperfection, they become your asset. You own your,
I mean, I don't want to, we talked a lot about this because we would watch people campaign for presidency. And they were the ones who were expressing their vulnerability were the ones people were more engaging with. We don't have to talk about politics, thank God. We have a day off from it. But I remember that was really fascinating, how we really connect with people who express their vulnerability in the public arena and privately. Sorry, Emmy?
Right. Another question. This is Elle from London. You have built an incredible global business. What practical advice from the book do you have for those in business? Has Own It helped you in your working life?
Yes, of course. I mean, during the pandemic, and I had to, everybody had to reassess. I mean, it's been really, really hard on everyone for business. I had to make a lot of decisions, close a lot of stores, separate from a lot of people who had been working with me. So it was a difficult moment, and therefore you have no choice but owning it. And the minute you own it, I mean, the minute you deal with it, the difficulty is still there, but the anxiety, you're just facing it. And it's your life, it's your business. It's, everybody goes up and down. And also the other thing that I realize is that what is most when I started this movement about being in charge, there are 4 things that you do for being in charge: connect, expand your horizon, inspire, and advocate. Inspire, and I realize that what is most inspiring is not the fact that you are a big success, but what is inspiring when you talk to people is when you talk to them about your difficulty. That is what is inspiring, because everyone can relate to that.
Here today. So we've got Veronica now from Germany. What has been your most challenging lesson in owning it?
Oh my God. In life in general, what has been my biggest challenge?
Yeah, I think that is the question. Yeah.
Is that, yeah. Well, I mean, everything. I mean, I've had cancer, I've had, failures, I've had, and like everybody else, you go through life and it's not a bed of roses. I've had a wonderful life and a very colorful life and a successful life, but with a lot of difficulties and challenges. And it's the challenges that make you grow. And it's the challenge. And also, by the way, sometimes people think you are at the top and you are not really, because you know that you're having difficulty. And in the same way, sometimes people think you're at the bottom and that's not true either, because you're already getting out of it. So it's all about the relationship you have with yourself. And the more, and it is the most important relationship in life. And it is the only thing that you could really, really count on. And that is what builds your character. And in order to have a good relationship with yourself, you have to own reality, whatever the reality is.
Was there ever, early on, when did this philosophy become real for you? I mean, in the book, you talk about the hair story.
Well, you may or may not know, but my birth was already my birth was a huge success. Since 18 months before I was born, my mother was in Auschwitz, and she, as a prisoner of war, and she weighed 29 kilos. So she wasn't supposed to have a child. I was born. So I was already, I had already won I was a miracle just by being born. So my mother was very tough. And she never wanted me to be afraid. Fear is not an option. If I was afraid of the dark, she would put me in a closet. Today she would go to jail, but as a result, she made me strong. And so I guess that she didn't say own it that way, because we spoke French, and I don't remember she's telling me assume, but everything about how she raised me was about facing the truth and dealing with whatever I had to deal with. She was,
You also, jumping a little bit, you talked about, vulnerabilities and how people see you. You talk about the other woman across the room. Will you tell us that story? When you feel like a loser and there's, and
No. What?
Yes.
I don't know. Do I have the woman
under what you have it.
I don't know where I have. No, but what when you go to a party or dinner, you always see the woman across the room, and you look at her and you think she's so perfect and so confident and so pulled together. And it may or may not be true, but to her, you are the woman across the room.
Emmy, more questions?
Hello from Madrid, Diane. Thank you for your time. During the conversation, you said that you had a very positive response from young girls. Do you think young women are lacking role models and people to look up to today?
No, but this is not about being a role model. This is like giving people a mirror to look at themselves and to feel with themselves. It's not about, and I don't know, do people have a role model? I don't know, but the young generation, especially the the new one, even, under 20, the Generation Z, they have a lot of advice for us, and they're going to change the world. So they're very strong, and it was funny because Fred Zachary, who's a friend of mine, came to see me over the holidays, and he came with his children, and his 18-year-old girl, I had given her the PDF, and she went crazy. She said, I have to buy this for all my friends. This is so cool for my generation. Also, the people who, I read this book to were my two granddaughters, 20 and 21, Talita and Antonia. They helped me. They gave me their advice. For example, I remember Antonia saying, do you mention anything about exes? Exes being your ex-wife, your ex-boyfriend or whatever. And I said, no. And she said, you should, because you always talk about your exes. So I added exes in there. So they were, Talita's favorite quote is, I talk about feet, I think, and I say, I love my legs,
that's
but I
right.
count on my feet. Yeah, something like that. So it was very interesting to test it with everyone, because everyone had something else to say. And I had a big book, and I wrote all these words, and every time I had a word, I put it in, and then I wrote it, and then I had a deadline, and then I didn't make my deadline, then I added more words. But anyway, we made it, and I think I would like to ask a question to you, the people there. Why do you think this book is appealing or interesting?
We'll get some answers in the comments.
We will. It leads on to a very good question, though. So, Amy from the US, are there words that you thought of after you finished the book that you wish you'd included? You talked about deadline.
Yes, there was one yesterday, but I forgot what it was. There was one yesterday but it's pretty complete. It's pretty complete. And then there's some that are very, very short, like, for example, addiction. It's very, very short, but I'm very proud of it. Wait, I'm going to find it for you. Addiction. When pleasure becomes prison, it's addiction.
Absolutely.
I like that.
From Hungary. So he said, good afternoon, Diane from Budapest. Is the energy of your writing process similar to your work in the fashion industry? Or has it generated a totally different one in you? And congrats on your book, by the way.
What was the question?
Has the energy of your writing is the energy of your writing process similar to your work in the fashion industry, or would you say that the writing process has generated a completely different energy for you?
No, I think it's very much the same. I give an incredible amount of importance to words, and I need words to make things happen. So I need words even in fashion. I need words everywhere. Unless I have a word, I can't, unless I can actually put it in a word, it's very vague and it doesn't happen. I need words for manifestation. So I need to have the words in order to manifest anything.
I think that the book, it's not so much about role models, but it is that. It's like, what are your words? What are the words that are important to the reader? What words? How would they define them? How will they continue to define them? I think it's an amazing. It's like almost invitation to take some action.
Well, I think it's two things I hope to my mother, again, she did not like me to use words wrong. If you use a word, you have to pay attention to that word, because that word has energy. That word has power. Once you put anything into a word, you throw it in the universe, it has power. So the power of words is very, very important. And the other thing is the power is accept,
No,
but
not
not
resignation.
surrendering, you know, but seeing the situation as it is and owning it already makes you feel in charge of it, you know. And of course you can't be in charge if you're sick. Part of the, you know, you go to the doctor and you listen to what the doctor says and you do what the doctor says, but you have a part too. You have to own it. I mean, I have a friend who's very sick right now, and what I did is I sent her a book on anatomy. By the way, Phaidon has a great one. A book on anatomy, because I said it's very important that as you heal, you visualize what you heal. And so in a way, it means, okay, the doctor does his part or her part.
You also
do
talk
your
about
part.
your attitude. You also talk about
You
your
are the one
attitude when
who
you were
said.
going to all your treatments after the cancer. And the one time a nurse said to you, you know, you're a good patient, and you said, how are the others? Remember that?
No, it's not that I said, how are the others? But that's when I learned about compassion. Compassion was a word that I don't think I had ever used, and I don't know, it was quite foreign to me. And I remember while I was in the cancer ward and I was watching people around me, that's when I understood compassion. And then all of a sudden, you know, when you think about the word and you say the word, it opens an horizon. It opens a whole thing. Empathy. Empathy is also something that I hadn't really thought too much about. Now, empathy is very important. I mean, they are, and then there are words that, and the thing is, like, my mother used to hate because we used to say, oh, it's divine, it's divine. And she said, what does it mean, it's divine? It's not divine. Divine is about divinity, you know? So paying attention to words, paying attention to detail makes you much more rich and makes you much more
absolutely
in charge. Listen, I'm an old woman now. I have lived a very full life. I have a lot of experience, and I am very thankful and very grateful for the life that I had, for the children and the grandchildren that I had, and for having a voice. And because I have a voice, it is my obligation, my duty, and my privilege to share my voice, my experience, my knowledge, my connection, in order to have other women, you know, give them the confidence that I found, give them the confidence to be the woman they want to be. And in order to be the woman you want to be, you first have to be the woman you are. Because what you are, what you may not like about you, you will discover that may very well be your asset. I mean, Amanda Gorman,
the poet,
you know, who
the poet, our poet.
What? The poet that spoke at the inauguration. I mean, we know her because she's on the board of Vital Voices. She had a speech impediment, right? She couldn't speak, and she spoke to the whole world. She became a superstar. So, I mean, it's that she owned it, you know, she owned it. Okay, I'm a granddaughter of a slave. I am this and that. Yes, I am that. But you know what? In 2036, I want to be president. Manifestation, words.
Absolutely, it creates our reality. And I have to say, as this woman, this man, it works. It works. Anyone in your life. I'm not trying to sell you all out there or anything, but this is a great book for the boys and the men as well.
Yes, and I got a lot of I got a good thing. It's a guide to be the best of who you are, and it's also a guide about liking who you are. And
I mean, I always, having read the book now just as a reader, it was this idea, if I had a store, it'd be like I would take inventory. What do I have and what don't I have? So that really, helps me in getting folks to stay. Amy, there must be another question.
I was going to say, Diane, we're getting some lovely responses to your question. So I just wanted to end with
How do you
they're
know
coming
that?
through the
How do you
chat.
know
So
that?
we'll email the rest to you, but we've got two here. So David has answered saying, your book is appealing because it is a way to be a better me. And then we have,
That's right. That's
yeah,
exactly
and then we
right.
have Laura from London saying, this book is appealing because, and I say this as a youngish woman, many of us feel a little bit loose in today's world. And maybe not role models, but we're looking for guidance, advice, and examples, which are not always that easily seen in such a troubled world and society. So thank you, Diane. I'm going to bring Keith back on. But thank you so much, Diane. There's some lovely questions. We'll definitely send them.
Okay, I'll end up with, I just open here. Insecurity. Insecurity is a waste of time but can be used as a source of growth. Okay, oh, they're gone.
Diane, thank you for your voice. Thank you for your wisdom. At Phaidon, we always have working titles of books, and we called this book the DGA by DVF, which was Damn Good Advice by DVF. It was something that all made us smile and happy. And it's been a joy to work with you. I'm very proud of this book. I'm very proud of the role that Billy and Lynn and Hans and others played to make such a beautiful book. You're an incredible woman.
Thank you. Can I do one more?
Yes, you can. My dad always said you end leaving them wanting more. So
No, but
part
there's
that
plenty.
we don't want to end.
Humility is not about being small. It can become strength and
Brava.
power.
Words of wisdom from a very special person. So thank you, everyone. Look forward to seeing you at the next Phaidon previews with our global artist, JR, who will preview his book, How Old Am I? Diane, thank you again. Thanks to all the retailers and marketers and press that are on this call to support it. We look forward to seeing you very soon. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.